we should take the Hamas leaders at their word. Just recently, they said that the attack on October 7th wasn't a one-time attack, that they would do it again, and again. So with all due respect to others that may say it's not justified, that's hard to imagine. Now, having said that, the Israelis, of course, must always act in accordance with the international law, which they certainly do, and they must minimize the impact to civilians.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has reiterated the Biden administration's position that Israel should not reoccupy Gaza after its war with Hamas, but left open the possibility that the Jewish state could play a role in a transition period. Robert Wexler is the president of the Abraham Center for Middle East Peace in Washington, D.C., and the former Florida Democratic member of Congress from 1997 to 2010. And Robert joins us now. Hello, Robert.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's really good for you to take the time out to speak to us this afternoon. So Mr. Blinken has been calling repeatedly for a humanitarian pause, and Joe Biden said he thought any occupation of Gaza by Israel would be a big mistake. It seems like we're getting to a point where some major decisions are going to have to be made, and what the US says will be pivotal in this.
Yes, and to this issue in particular, I think there is good news, because there is essentially a meeting of the minds between the United States and our Israeli friends, in the sense that Israel will not occupy Gaza on any type of basis once their military objectives are achieved, hopefully much sooner rather than later. So that is the understanding. And then there will hopefully be put in place some transitional period where there most hopefully, there will be a Palestinian presence that directs what will happen. And if it all works well, there'll be an international presence. Hopefully our Arab allies will come and play a major role in terms of humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, and helping the people of Gaza to get back on their feet.
Robert, is it fair to say that the Israeli government has not been listening to what the Americans want as much as they might have liked?
I think it's a give and take discussion. I think the Israeli government does take very seriously what the Biden administration provides in terms of advice. Of course, America has stood by Israel shoulder to shoulder during this crisis, as have many of our allies, including Great Britain. But of course, there will be differences of tactical approaches. And from time to time, there may be a disagreement. But in terms of the main objective, what you mentioned in terms of no occupation of Gaza, there is a meeting of the minds, so there is no difference.
Is that stabilizing force, though? Is it going to happen from a Palestinian plus an Arab perspective? Because, I was just speaking to Dr. Mustafa Barghouti about 10 minutes ago, the General Secretary for the Palestinian National Initiative, and he said, no, there should be nobody else who comes in from the Arab world. It should be the Palestinians themselves who come straight in after this Israeli offensive is over.
Well, ideally, it should be the Palestinians who come in, and that would be terrific. But what type of apparatus and capability is brought in has to be substantial enough to meet the needs of the 2 million plus people in Gaza. And the Palestinian Authority, of course, has enough difficulty at the moment simply trying to run the West Bank. It's not like they have excess funds or the ability to create jobs or the ability to create very significant housing availability for the people who need it. Having said all that, it should be done Palestinian run, Palestinian directed. And ultimately, the decision should all be Palestinian. But I think it's unrealistic to think that simply because the Israeli military operation is over, that the Palestinian Authority or any other Palestinian entity can just come in and have the capacity to do what's required. President Abbas, of course, has added a different dimension as well. He says, yes, there should be a Palestinian umbrella or Palestinian directed recovery effort, but that it has to be an effort that provides a political vision for not just Gaza, but the West Bank as well. So that's another part of this puzzle that needs to be addressed in a very serious way.
Robert, there's been a pro-Palestinian march with 300,000 people taking place in London today. There have been similar marches taking place around the world, including in the US. Of course, they want an immediate ceasefire. When do you expect this initial part of the Israeli plan to end, so we are at that point of a ceasefire? How long will it take, do you think?
It will end when the Israelis conclude that they've achieved enough deterrence so that the safety of their country can be assured. It will end when they have significantly demilitarized the northern section of Gaza, which is the base of Hamas. It will end when the Israelis conclude that they can move their own people back in terms of the communities that lived in the southern part of Israel, as well as the northern part in terms of the border with Lebanon. Hopefully, this will be a matter of weeks, not months. And that will hopefully be enough time for the Israelis to achieve enough of their military objectives in a way to create deterrence again, because it won't do anyone any good, Israelis or Palestinians, if they're fighting again in 3 months or 6 months or a year. That helps no one.
Does that go against then what Emmanuel Macron told the BBC in an interview yesterday? He said there was no justification currently for the bombing because of who is dying underneath it.
I think that's a unfortunate and somewhat simplistic analysis, with all due respect to the president of France. Everyone is well aware of the reasons why the Israelis are conducting the military operations that they are conducting. It's in response to one of the most heinous terrorist attacks that any country has suffered in recent times. No country, the United States, France, Great Britain, would react any differently than the way the Israelis are reacting in terms of making certain that the enemy that attacked is demilitarized, is confronted in a way so that they don't have the ability to repeat what they've done. I mean, we should take the Hamas leaders at their word. Just recently, they said that the attack on October 7th wasn't a one-time attack, that they would do it again, and again. So with all due respect to others that may say it's not justified, that's hard to imagine. Now, having said that, the Israelis, of course, must always act in accordance with the international law, which they certainly do, and they must minimize the impact to civilians. And they, like other countries, can always do better. And that's what we in the United States hope to do in terms of working with them to assure that that's what they do. But that is their guiding principle, the Israelis.
Robert, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us this afternoon.